Alright, guys, welcome back to another episode of your favorite booktuber, Keven reads. Today we're reading Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World by Dave Espien. This book was probably one of my favorite books last year in 2020. I bought it. I listened to a lot of the podcasts interviewing the author, but I haven't really read it until the second half of last year. And it turns out it's actually really interesting book in the sense that it tells us why in such a specialized world right now, why some generalist thought process can be valuable. As always, this is a video companion of my daily podcast, 100 Books a Year with Keven Wang. Feel free to follow me on goodreads.com/Keven Wang to track my progress, and you can listen on any platform that carries podcasts. All right, let's get right into it. That was loud, probably, huh? So I want to start with one of my very own examples of switching from a specialized major in college to a more generalized major, right? So when I first went to college, I wanted to become a doctor, right? A physician my whole life. So I never really wanted to change that. You know how some people, they want to be one thing last month and then they want to be something else the next month. For me, it's always been a doctor, right? So I started college with a pre-med track and then I was doing biomedical engineering. Biomedical engineering is actually the definition of a of a very a specialized field, right? Like you can get a PhD from just understanding or innovating one part of the MRI machine or X-ray machine, right? And then for various reasons, I just cannot do OChem. I had to make a tough choice, right? About a year and a half into my college career, and then I decided to give marketing a shot. Actually, just business school. Like I don't really know anything about marketing at that point, and then I was going to do finance majors, and then I was taking this general class. Everybody has to take the introduction to marketing class. I love the professor. In the first lesson, we're talking about like Confucius and whatnot. So I was like, oh, that's my jam. So here I am, graduating with a marketing degree, right? So let's just kickstart on this whole experience and skill conversation, right? What does experience actually lead to skill, or what is the correlation between them? So if you guys don't know who that is, we're done here, right? He is Danny Kahneman. He is my favorite behavioral economics writer, or my favorite. I want to say he's not really a psychologist. No, he is a psychologist, but he's not really an economist. So he thinks that experience doesn't translate to skill. He thinks that when people went through something, they think that they've seen it all. They develop a sense of confidence. Or Danny was saying that they develop a sense of overconfidence in that sense. So Danny doesn't believe that experience will be translated to skill. Now, for me, I kind of see this side of the argument because a lot of times his perspective is that when we tend to get our ego bloated, oh, I got my friend chatting with me with movies. Anyway, sorry, I forgot to put it on do not disturb mode. But anyway, the point is that we tend to develop our ego more and more whenever we are talking about this type of situation. And we tend to overlook the details that we might find within the next time that we're doing this. When we say, oh yeah, cool, I already been through this, I know everything. Now, another psychologist, his name is Gary Klein, as you see from the picture. He believes that experience translate to a skill directly, right? So he believes that human beings were a rational being, we are a smart being, so we actually, once we can recognize a pattern, once we can have the ability to recognize, okay, I've seen this before, I've seen that before, we should be able to get skilled or get the subject, get the task done quicker than before, right? Or it just comes down to how you define a skill, right? So as you can see, between Gary and Danny, they are coming from two different perspectives, right? Like Gary was coming from this like kind of like chess player, poker player, or firefighter perspective, where whenever there's a fire, right, then you kind of know by instinct because you've put out fire for more than a few years or for more than a few houses, so you know what kind of a sign to look for, what kind of fire are we dealing with, and which room or which path should we start in terms of putting out a fire, right? At least in the U.S. So how are they gonna resolve this situation? Is that they both joined forces in 2009. They both did a study trying to see exactly what kind of relationship are between experience and skill, right? So here is what they've found. So the answer to their paper is my favorite type of answers in pretty much psychology or in life in general. Is that it depends on the environment, or it depends on the condition or the situations. So here are the two conditions. One is what we call the narrow domain, or the other one is what we call the wicked domain. Okay? So let me expand into those things separately, and then we will know more about it down the line. Like what can we say is, like what counts as a narrow domain, what counts as a wicked domain. So let's go down. Oh, okay, I put some empty pages on here. All right, cool, I think I found it. So in general, guys, when we are talking about narrow domains, we're talking about set rules, we're talking about set parameters, we're talking about the rules are not changing that much. We're talking about just a very stable, very static environment, kind of like this picture, right? Like the trees are all being grown the same way, being pruned the same way. There's one path down. You know where it leads to. You know how far it is. You know how long are you gonna walk. There's no expectation, or there's not much variance. There's not much changing at all. This is what we mean by a narrow domain. Kind of like a chessboard too, right? There's only so many boxes, there's only so many ways that you can move each piece. So in this case, experience equals skills. So in a sense that the more experience that you're gaining, the more skill you are going to obtain as well. So the trick here is to recognize, is my environment, either for learning or for work, is that environment narrow, or is that environment wicked, right? So secondly, what do we mean by a wicked environment, right? So wicked environment is very simple. This is where the rules are not clear, right? This is where there's incomplete information, there's no pattern at all, and it's a very dynamic situation or dynamic condition. Everything can change in a second or in a few hours, and we might sometimes get inaccurate feedback, or we might sometimes just get delayed feedback as well. So in a sense, it's very, very hard to figure out exactly what is going on. It's kind of like this photos, right? Like if you're walking through that tree, those trees right here, you like don't know when are you gonna have a hole or have a pothole down there, or when are you gonna, like encounter a tiger, right? Like the situation is all ever changing. So in a wicked domain, experience doesn't equal skill, right? An example, because in this book, they really like to use firefighters for this section. So let's say, because I'm Chinese, right? Oh, I have another email. I'm a busy man today, which is good. Anyway, so let's say a firefighter in China, right? There's not really that many houses in China. Most people live in high rises, right? Apartment buildings. So the fireman in China was trained to put out fire in the apartment buildings or in the high rises. They have their concept and they have their kind of a process. If you transplant the Chinese firefighter here in the US, say, hey, put out fires for the homes, for the separate houses, they might have troubles, right? Vice versa. So to bring those two domains together, I want to share a pretty interesting example that I thought about. Tesla, right? More uniquely, it's a Tesla self-driving, right? So what I mean is the cars are actually collecting data every day, and the more people drive Tesla, the better the data will be, right? So in a sense, we see this kind of a transformative relationship between a wicked domain and a narrow domain, in the sense that we are actually in a wicked domain right now, right? Even though the roads are settled, but the cars are a constant variable, right? So through collecting data, through more driving of a Tesla, we can try to change our domain from wicked domain to narrowing domain, right? And I think this can represent our mode of thinking as well. Sometimes we can translate from a generalist perspective, because things are ever changing. Through reading, through doing study, through accumulating of knowledge, we can get it to a narrow domain where we can find something to specialize in, right? And this guy, right, the chess grandmaster, Gary Karapov, I think I spelled that incorrectly, but you know who he is, right? He battled Deep Blue, the chess program back in 1998, I believe, late 90s. So he said that anything we know how to do as a human being, the machine can do it better, right? So in a sense that what determines the future of, let's say, like losing of jobs or the development of AI is really humans. We really need to be put to the task that we kind of don't know that much about it. So what he's saying is narrow domain tasks will be taken by the robots, the AI. The wicked domain jobs are human beings a specialty. So all right, guys, hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for bearing with my terrible handwriting. Please sub to the channel, hit the bell, and comment on the website on this video. Let me know what you think. This is Kevin signing off. You guys have a good one.